particularly school education. What were your findings? What did you find that was existing in India, and what are the challenges?
First of all, let me thank you, Mohan, for this opportunity to interact with you. You are always somebody very unique and special to me. On many occasions, I have sought your help. And of course, you have this tremendous ability to recall numbers, which is a great asset for few individuals. And always that clinches the argument most of the time. That's the interesting part of it. So far as education is concerned, we did go through we had interestingly several initial responses to our inquiry of what is the thing that we need to do. We didn't start with a preconceived notion of what the education has to be. So you'll be surprised. The order was issued on a particular date. Within an hour, Jayaprakash Narayan from Hyderabad called me. Can I come tomorrow to make my presentation? And here he was. He spent half a day on the very first day of the order to give the issues of the students with respect to the teachers, with respect to pedagogy, with respect to curriculum, with respect to infrastructure, in respect to the girl students, the inadequacy of financial support for the needy ones, and then of course the very fundamental issue of are we teaching the right thing for the right age? That is a fundamental question. And this was a beautiful discourse with Jayaprakash Narayan. So that triggered off the kind of thing that we wanted to look and investigate with respect to education. So it has been a massive challenge for us to deal with the type of responses. There are also, the two types of thing. The private schools look at it. Is there going to be a change in the policy that will affect their interest? That's the question. The other part of it is the public system can be strengthened, which needs a resolve that we have to make changes in the structure along with the academic component. So this was another kind of a challenge. I think what I want to say is, I think we could finally, that gave us also a flavor of how to look at the problem, how to balance the issues, and how to make sure there are no compromises, but how to make sure that this support system can find a approach which will not conflict with the interest of either of them, which only help them. Because the fundamental question with school education was that it needed a total massive restructure, overhauling, if you want to say. And that is something nobody could question. And the most important other part of it is we also introduced quite a bit of scientific logic into this. It was not purely abstract information, somebody's opinion, somebody is saying. We did introduce, and there were very strong arguments with regard to the scientific inputs for this, and that clinched the issue so far as how the policy for the school education we have to configure.
Dr. Kasturi Rangan, the important question is, what is the underpinning philosophy that guided you in formulating these policies? What did you set out to achieve at the end of it? Because the policy is required for the next 15, 20 years. Policies are not changed overnight. It has to last and take India into the 21st century. The next 20 years are going to be very different. As a scientist, you know the rapidity of change that's going to impact the world. So what are the underpinning philosophy so that it lasts for the next 15, 20 years?
The few things that are extremely important in our country, in our society, which is multilingual, cultural, plural kind of approach to everything, is that the different segments have different approaches to education, and how do we want to, how they would like to see India's education policy shape. It'll be interesting to note that we had discussions with a group of Christian missionaries of to how they look at it. Two very intense meetings. We have 15, 16 Muslim organizations who came together, and they had their own view of how to deal with education. Here was a saint Vidyasagar of the Jains. They have there are 5 crore people in this country. They have a large investment in education, and they revere this man. And he's a kind of a Digambara who continuously is a shifting location. So wandering Muni, so to say. And he was camping away from Raipur in this thing. he said that he would like to have a discussion with me, and that too personally. Now, I took the flight to Raipur, went there and drove through rickety roads and reached the place where he was. It was not a great place, but he had shown and there were a lot of his followers there, and spent three-fourths of a day with him. His approach to life and therefore of education should be extremely simple, value-based things. That you should be clean, you should wash your the thing. These kind of he gave a precepts in a sense of what it should be. So then there is a Tibetan who came and shared his thing, a Buddhist thing. Then there were Sikhs and then of course a large number of bodies in the Hindu part of it. So this gave us an idea of that we should not cut short any process of thinking which may have an effect on any one of this. So that was one of the things, the philosophy we decided is these multiple sources of input. Then of course there are other segments of the society. I don't want to overlook the fact that there were industrialists, FICCI, CIA, they were all there. I am giving this kind of a people because these are the ones that can really make difference into their opinion. And they have large followers and they have their own aspirations. So we went in. So that is the point that I would like to say, that then of course the third or fourth considerations are not philosophical, but imperatives. The ones that I would like to say is, one is that India has a population, 50% is above 30 years, or below 30 years. This is one. And the next 10 years for them, this is a stakes. It's an aspiration. You have a technology which is changing, artificial intelligence experts, these are all a part and parcel of today's thing. And if education does not have a focus on this kind of a thing, obviously we are going to lose out. That is another kind of a thing. Then you look at the kind of international things that we have committed ourselves, what you may call Sustainable Development Goals, SDG4, and the kind of the lifelong education and quality education for everyone. So those kind of, they are simple to state, but extremely difficult in terms of translating into actions. So we had to have a policy. So this is the other side of the framework that we had to put down. So these kind of approaches, which involved multiple elements or agents of the society, multiple institutions, multiple organizations with interest in education, and individuals who have given their life for education, we didn't want to leave them out. The philosophy was take their inputs, convert it into a philosophy, and then integrate it, and then create a framework for this. That's how we do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's been a very large democratic exercise where you listen to all shades of opinion, taken the best from everybody, and distilled it into one single report. No, Dr.
I only want to say in the 2 years, we had a minister who appointed us. He always checked how we are progressing, but never once did he say, why don't you look into this aspect? Because
oh, really? You have full autonomy, full freedom.
Remarkable. I should say, these are things that really gladdens my heart and also have hope in the system.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That means that you had full freedom to come out with a report, no restrictions on your thinking, and you assimilated all these thoughts and came out with this wonderful report.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Kasturirangan, when the new education policy is implemented, a child who has gone through 12 years of the policy imperatives, when they finish 12 years of school, because we'll confine ourselves to school education, what do you think the child should be? What kind of person the child should be at the age of, let us say, 18? Because I think this is important. You are trying to create, to use a crude word, a finished product, a product that comes out of school. What is that finished product? What do you expect the child to have? What are the qualities of heart and mind that the child should have that should come out from what your suggestions are in the policy?
Great, thoughtful question, typical of you, Mohan. I only want to say, first, I had to always work backwards. Being also a scientist, I don't just look at the outcome and then forget about what led to that outcome. So I have to give a little time to the fact that if you have to create an outcome where the child has a meaningful role in the society, he or she is employable. He or she knows the system, what is called India, the complex system, and he is able to take views, even though not very incisive and very high level, but he has an understanding of the issues of and also subscribe to the basic ethos and principles of this country, you need a certain way of acquiring it. To acquire this, you have to start making investments right from the day the child is born. It is not as simple as saying that we can get something at the end of the school without bothering about what happened to the child. So how do you do this? That is where the story starts. You create the first 3 years at home. You have a home language, there is a mother tongue and all that kind of a thing. The family takes a lot of interest in the child in even the traditional way, like playthings and other things which are so unique to every state. These are all there. The child is grown with a lot of care, affection, and at the same time responsive to the environment, which is what the cognitive science demands. Then the next 5 years, the child doesn't grow, every child doesn't grow in the same way. There is a non-linearity in the case of the child's growth. So we need to make sure that every child is given its attention and find out its strengths and weaknesses and correct it. This will, because 83% of the brain is complete development by the age of 8. So if you don't take advantage of that growth pattern, and also not every child grows in the same way in which the other child grows. So this creates a an unstructured educational requirement. So the foundational phase is one where we call as an unstructured phase, because every child has to be dealt for its own strengths and weaknesses. So this is the second part of it. So once you do that part of it, you start getting into a second phase where you try to start understanding some basic principles, some ideas, some communication, but across the subjects, not necessarily that it can concentrate on one subject or other subject, but in the overall context of it. That is the that is the primary school. Then you go to the kind of a middle school where you can now structure yourself into subjects. So that subject learning comes into picture by the middle school. And then finally in the secondary school, all these years of 5 plus 3 plus 3, 11 comes into the aid of making the child understand things, able to make judgments, be creative, be original, and all other faculties, which gives the virtue for the child to to learn the world, to understand the world, and to even pick up expertise in skills or occasional things which are useful at that particular stage. So it is a build-up of a child in the 15 years, plus a direction to the home, that the first 3 years, there will be provisions. In that policy, we have said there will have to be a provision to make sure that even the 3 years, we need to be looking after that child properly by the parents, and the necessary institutional mechanism we need to bring. So that is the story of a child's growth. So it is a very interesting way to look at it. It goes from a perceptual capability to a conceptual capability, to a prescriptive capability, and ultimately an abstract things he can learn. So in 4 stages, the child grows. We take advantage of that growth pattern and try to give it that gift that it can make judgments on its own, it can learn on its own, it can use books, it can deal with others. And this is the kind of a thing at a level which is consistent with what is demanded out of it. And it also becomes employable, because the elements of vocational education we bring in at the 3 year next second 3 year period, and also in the final secondary school period. So you have a job possibility also. After all, you go to a village, and in fact, Prime Minister beautifully put it that we need to adopt a few days of bagless days. The youngsters should go and visit the local institutions, try to learn out of factories, hospitals, other kinds of things, learn gardening and many carpentry. And so these are all embedded into the policy with respect to the last 4 years. So this, in a sense, makes the child what it should be as a future Indian.
That's wonderful. I think this is very well thought out. But tell me a very personal question. You are a man of great accomplishment. You reached the heights of Indian science, headed ISRO, did so many things. Chandrayaan, you were responsible for that. From the education that you got as a child, what is different in what you are suggested? Because we want more Kasturi Rangans. We want more people like you. But you are an exception to that generation.
I want to tell you, one thing is there. We were brought up in a school. I was in Kerala for 5 years. Much of my school education was in Mumbai. And Mumbai is a kind of a society which, if you get exposed, you become more adventurous, more bold and things and things like that. And also it has got a multi the cultural society. And then I went to Ahmedabad, but to Vikram Sarabhai for my PhD. The important aspect is the school period was very limited in terms of the type of thing we are seeing, the no rote learning. 50% should be devoted to arts, crafts, and many other kinds of things. Freedom for child to learn what it wants, and don't unnecessarily load the child with subjects in a directed way, which is of no interest for the child. So allow it to choose among a variety of subjects, and if facilitated, we have even given a school complex as a model to realize all that kind of a thing. In some element, this was prevalent in our times. We
Oh,
were we were taught not very large. Our subject matters were limited. Number one. Second thing is, most of the questions, the teachers used to ask us questions and try to evaluate whether we have understood the principle or not. This is
oh,
the second part of it. Every Saturday before I go home, in terms of half a day is a school day, they bring some books, which is all on Greek legends, Indian myths, and everything. And they ask me children to bring it up and bring it on Sunday, Monday morning. The whole idea, they are not going to ask questions. You read it for your sake. So this is another kind of a thing. And then I, having born in and moving in Matunga area, you know this in Bangalore, Bombay, I used to visit the footpath books store.
oh.
And I used to buy it was 4 annas in those
What?
days for a book. And several books I used to buy over 50. We get it 15 days to 1 month vacation. I should read 100 books. That is a kind of
100 books.
all kinds of books. They may be also 30 pages and 40 pages. Those I'm not talking of 200 books pages. But you read, whether it is history, whether it is geography, whether it is a legend, whether it is myth, whether it is the question of a Roman Empire, type and all by Tacitus. I read Tacitus' book on the annals of Roman Empire in those years. So,
Oh,
this gave a kind of what you today call as a liberal education from the street. A liberal
the
education from the
street.
street was the kind of a thing. So, the freedom that you enjoyed at the family level, no, try to load you. School teaches you limited things, gives you the freedom to read more
Think.
things. And then you also inspire yourself in reading all the kinds of things. It could be whether the knowledge comes out from a public library or from the street, it doesn't matter. It changes the personality. First of all, it changes your English. First of all, it changes your thinking. It changes the variety of ways in which various civilizations have grown. I think having left that phase, he still was stuck in the mind.
Oh,
I think when you become chairman of ISRO, sometimes from that, what you call as a RAM, random access memory, something is drawn, or some other thing is drawn. So this is a very interesting way in which I think my growth and evolution has been. There is no trajectory of this kind laid out for everybody. It just happens, and it just happened. So I think that is all I can summarize with respect to this. Of course, when you go to space, you learn a lot of things in space. And the space is not science and technology alone. Applications are there, social elements are there, economic aspects are there, strategic aspects are there, foreign collaboration is there. So once you become a chairman of space, you have to be aware at least up to a good point about these elements. And then you become in the Rajya Sabha, you give a little more, because what you try to do is to refine your thoughts to make sure that people listen to you. Because
oh,
space I can say and people listen because I am chairman. In Rajya Sabha, if you say wrong things, you will be rebuked. So you are always nervous what you say and what you don't say. So that sharpened my method of analyzing things before I can talk a word about it in Rajya Sabha. The planning commission gave the mother of all kind of a thing, if you ask me, an experience of India, experience of planning of India, and couple it with economics, and then try to look at how do you sharpen specific areas in a holistic manner. That was something, because you don't have any institution which can do that kind of a thing. So that was the third element. And finally, when this challenge was thrown to us, the one of making the national education policy, all I can say is it proved to be much more complex than all the earlier experiences. And so I conclude by saying NEP gave me an experience which is a mother of all
all
complexities.
experiences.
Yeah.
Dr. Rangan, my last question before we go on to Q&A. India is a very diverse country. There are rich, middle class, lower middle class, poor. There are tribal areas, backward areas, so-called backward areas, big cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, etc. There are private schools, public schools, all kinds of schools. Now, all this is required in diversity. How does your policy, the policy recommendation, ensures that no child is left behind, that every child gets good education, there's equal access to all, and there is good quality in everything? Because nobody has been able to solve this problem in the last 70 years. Because we are a country with about maybe 200 to 28 crore children in school, and we produce 2.5 crore babies a year. So, do you have any savings on this? It's the last
I think we have actually the very first thing that we have done on the early childhood care and education, where the largest dropouts occurred. And a good part of the largest dropout, not only that is the only reason, is the fact that the child is not able to bear the load of ignorance. It is being pumped with mathematics, so many subjects, but is not able to understand it. Because as I told you, the brain growth, there's a mismatch between the brain growth and the way we educate the youngster. So that is the part which we want to correct it with respect to the childhood education, early childhood and the foundational phase. All that we are trying to make sure is this foundational phase education, which should be one of the first priorities in the education now in this country. We need to bring ECC. If you don't do ECC properly, and also a program which is attaining the foundational literacy and numeracy, which is one of the other aspects of it. By 2025 is the time we have put for this. I think there is a national mission they are going to form for this. And this is for foundational literacy, and then correspondingly change the pedagogy. As I said, it is 5 plus 3 plus 3. I think this is one of the things that has to be brought into picture. And particularly, I want to say that there is no escape from ECC being now introduced as early as possible, the early phase of the school education for the child education and child care. That is one. The second, of course, is the fact that we have now tried to discuss a little bit about areas which are, mostly it is a question of equitable, inclusive education we talk of on one side. And there are these socio-economically disadvantaged groups. I can come up to that much later if you want. But the gender identity is an issue where even females as well as transgender are separated out and they are disadvantaged. Socio-cultural index, even CST, all said and done, or OBC or minorities, there's the other part of it. Then there are these geographical and problems. Some of the villages have got very poor in terms of the economy. And then disabilities is another kind of a thing. Then socio-economic condition, migrant labor, and things like that. There are the questions of education. How do you? So the policy has made separate strategy as policy for each one of them. This is the most important thing. Questions can range. The issues, recommendations could range from scholarship, financial support, hostels, right teachers, the ability to have that right. For example, disparity means disabled fellow means you need to have even devices to aid them, and then they climb ramps and things like that. So and we can discuss with the entire group in this country which is representing the disparity. We spend half a day with them. So to give you an idea of that, how seriously we have gone in, I think in each one of them we have talked to the representative, and we have also one member who was a member of the vice chancellor of the tribal university, Indira Gandhi National Open Tribal University, Mr. Kattimani, Professor Kattimani. He knows in and out of the tribal education and what is denying them, what do we want to help them, and what do we want to, we don't want to perturb them also, because under the name of high education, you try to perturb their culture, that also is not a right thing. So he gave us a very valuable inputs on this kind of a thing. So on the whole, we have addressed this question in a holistic manner. All the socio-economically disadvantaged groups have been addressed. Specific suggestions have come out of all this, and we have included it as a policy, keeping in mind the various special requirements, including the creation of the right type of teachers and attitude in the society.
That's wonderful. I think that's fantastic. Santosh, we are running out of time. Any questions for Dr. Rangan? I wish we had more time because it's getting exciting. We still need half an hour, but you're cutting us out. Any questions?
I think there are a couple of themes, I think, but one theme that is definitely coming out is in terms of implementation and the challenges. Is there a transition plan in place? I think if we can just address that as
Yes.
one theme, that would be great.
Okay, Doctor?
And, yeah, thanks.
I didn't want too much of emphasis on implementation at the time when we formulated the policy. There are two reasons for it, and this stems from my experience in space. If you try to say the 4 years before Chandrayaan, 8 years before Chandrayaan was lost, 4 years I steered the Chandrayaan planning and getting public opinion. It was a huge task in terms of getting the public opinion. I mean, here, of course, it was 100 times more, but Chandrayaan also demanded that public visibility, acceptability in the country, that we're going to spend money on a planetary mission, and the questions of the value of that money for other purposes. So this is the kind of a thing. So this is something on which we have taken enough care. I think the specific question.
Implementation.
Yeah. So the specific question is, how do you implement? We need, first of all, if you go from the implementation point of view and then look at the present benchmark for implementation, I could have given a sort of a report within a month, and you could have done anything with it. The idea was not to create a policy because it will be implemented, and these are the reasons. We have never had program. The strength for me, at least, and many of them have their own way of looking at it. The strength comes on the fact that we have many times started programs in this country not because we looked at the implementation ability, but we worked for the implementation of this. As a distinct from implementation. This policy needs a tremendous resolve at the level of nation, at the level of individuals, at the level of the educational systems, and at the level of people who are interested in education, people like you, to further strengthen and expand this area, and finally a political will. So what is interesting is, on one side, we have created a document making sure that it is certainly the one that is needed for this country. What is needed for the country and what can be implemented for the country, I can analyze separately and give you the results. But what I consider is what is needed for the country is most important. Otherwise, you're going to lose out. And right now, you see the Prime Minister is starting Atmanirbhar and getting several things initiated. Why is it that this could not have been done? Is it because we could not do this? We can do it, but we have not done it. That's the point. So those are the kind of loopholes we want to plug here. And on the other side, I'm happy to say, because in the recent, very last week, the PM has come repeatedly to emphasize that this policy will be done.
Oh, brilliant.
So, and he said we own the policy. That's the most important thing, and no stone will be left unturned to carry on this policy. So between the two, there is a whole host of things to be done. The implementation, to me, is a tough job, but it has to be done. It's not a question of, but the implementation, all the policy policy, what do you call it, paras, if you really look at it, they're all well within our means to do. Yeah, as a scientist, I can see that there is nothing there that cannot be done. But you need a culture to do it. You need a resolve. You need, as a nation, that we need to take it forward, because otherwise we should have that fatalistic view. Education failure is going to be a failure of the nation. That fatalistic view, everybody should have to work on this. I see that sign right now. And if we can somehow sustain it and build on it, I think like, and people like Mohan, who have the ability to convey this very much more forcefully than what I think can play a role in this. I don't want to be, I'm not being quantitative for purpose. No, we have got 6% GDP, all I can reel out. But I think they are, to me, less important than the fact that there is a resolve in this country. Cultural change, if necessary, we will bring in. Individuals and collective systems will support it. And there is everyone should think that he or she has got a role in this. Whether he is directly nominated by the government, that he is officer on special duty, or he is a specialty, nothing of that kind. I have no locus standi today in the anywhere, but I'm willing to do anything within my energy. That is the whole thing. So I think I have no doubt it can be done. There could be certainly some Cassandras of dooms, exactly like Sarabhai faced when he wanted to start this thing. But he said that we have to leapfrog. You used the word leapfrog, and now we are going to have a leapfrog in education from the state of a lower level education to a state of a 21st century education. And that leapfrogging is a must. And whatever energy you want to impart for that leapfrogging, I think it is our task to do.
Thank you, Dr. Rangan. That's wonderful. And over to the organizers.
Thank you. Thank you so
Santosh.
much, Mr. Pai and Dr. Rangan. Absolute honor to have you here. I'll quickly hand it over to my colleague and friend Sriram for the next segment. Thank you so much.